You're listening to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. We're here to leverage rich relationships and smart strategies to take your business to the next level. Here's your host, Dustin Rieckman.
Say yes to revenue that drives towards your core purpose, and say no to revenue that is not aligned with your core purpose. So if a government agency comes and says, will you speak to us? I say no, because it takes me away from my core of helping entrepreneurs, right? And I would speak to all these government people and they'd be, yeah, Cameron's too entrepreneurial. Yeah, I fucking am. I say no to corporate audiences all the time because it's just not, I don't fit in a corporate environment. Yeah. I don't dress that way. I don't talk that way. So it would ruin my brand and it would take me away from time with my entrepreneurial. So those would be my core focus points. And then the last one is start to delegate everything except genius. If you're going to be building a company, stop the urge to do the work.
Yes.
And if you say, well, I don't have anyone to delegate it to, find someone, fractional or full-time, whatever, but delegate it anyway. Just pick someone and then coach them and develop them so that you can get stuff off your plate. And that's where scale is going to come from.
Man. Amazing answer, of course. A lot of directions we could go with that. I think the one glaring question that comes up for me, if someone's been in the work, so they left a corporate job, they're doing coaching, they're doing consulting, they're really happy with the level of income, but they don't see a path forward to remove themselves out of any of the seats. You mentioned the first hire, executive assistant, because if you don't have one, you are one. I think that's really key. But the thing that really stood out to me is how articulate and clear you are on your purpose, right? And you said this purpose is tied to your vivid vision, and your purpose, of course, is tied to the other vivid visions of the entrepreneurs that you serve. So that becomes a very important filter.
I got a bit of a helping hand with my core purpose years ago. Do you know the name Simon Sinek?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Simon was on our board of advisors 5 years before he wrote the book Start With Why.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
5 years before he did the TEDx talk. So he was at my home for dinner one night in 2004, and we were talking just about stuff. And he said, he was asking me about core purpose, what my why. And again, this was way before people knew who he was. He ran a 5-person marketing agency for years when I knew him. And he identified that the reason I did what I did was I kept seeing entrepreneurs like flies banging their head on the window and ending up dead on the windowsill, right? Their company going bankrupt, struggling for hard, their marriage was at risk. And I'm like, there's always a shortcut. There's this easier path. And he goes, why do you like helping them so much? I'm like, because I just see that easier path and I want to help them. And he said that all you really want to do is help entrepreneurs make their dreams come true, right? Make their vivid vision come true.
Absolutely.
And I was like, yeah, that's why I do what I do. And he goes, that's your core purpose. That's your aligning reason for waking up in the morning. So for me, and it drives my wife crazy at times, now she understands it. But when we were first dating, she was like, why are you going for lunch with that person? Why are you helping? Why don't you charge them? I'm like, I don't need to charge them. If I help that person, it just leads to more yeses later. It leads to more doors later. It leads to more revenue later. But again, if it was somebody who was running a nonprofit, I wouldn't go for lunch with them.
No, I love that. So if we don't know Simon Sinek 5 years before he writes his pinnacle book, like how do we start to make progress towards that? Because it feels like it's a very foundational part of decision making to have this filter. Would you suggest we start with a vivid vision, and then from the vivid vision we can sort of distill it down into a core purpose to make these critical decisions?
A core purpose and core values and your big, hairy, audacious goal are different components of things you need to understand, as is the vivid vision.
Got it.
So remember when you were young and your mom gave you a jigsaw puzzle to kill time on a rainy afternoon?
Yeah.
What was the first thing you did with the jigsaw puzzle before you started?
You find the corner pieces.
Well, before the corner pieces, you looked at the picture.
Yeah,
on the
look
front
at
of
the
the
picture
box,
to get
right?
a vision for what I was trying to ultimately create, right?
Yeah. So the vivid vision is the picture on the front of the box.
Got it.
Every entrepreneur needs to decide what their company looks like, acts like, and feels like in the future, right? So describing your entire company is the starting point. The 4 corners of the jigsaw puzzle are your core purpose, your core values, your BHAG, which is your big, hairy, audacious goal, and then your 1-year plan to start making that vivid vision come true. Those are the 4 corners of the jigsaw puzzle. After you find the 4 corners, what do? You look for all the side pieces.
Yep.
Well, the first side of your jigsaw puzzle are all the people systems. That's the recruiting, interviewing, hiring, training, onboarding of people. The second side of your jigsaw puzzle is your strategic thinking systems. That's mentoring, coaching, your annual planning meetings, strategy, SWOT analysis. It's spending time in strategy, which is different from planning.
Yes.
Strategy and planning are two different things. Planning is part of your third side of the systems, which are all of your meeting rhythms, right? Your meeting rhythms are like your annuals, your financial meetings, your one-on-one meetings, your daily huddles, your L10s, your coaching meetings. All of your meeting rhythms are your third side. And then the fourth side of your puzzle are all the financial systems, cash flow, budgeting, right? Your P&L, balance sheet analysis, fractional CFO oversight. Those are the financial systems. And then remember, when you get your corners and your sides, we start looking for the big shiny objects. Where's the red chair and the yellow umbrella, right? Because they're easy to pull those.
Yep.
Those are your culture systems that start to emerge.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's, super helpful analogy. And then I can even look in my own business, and there's some sides that maybe aren't missing, but they weren't intentionally set, right? So they're
not as
fuzzy.
important. You don't need to work on some of those early sides of your puzzle too early.
Yeah.
Right. When you're a small 1 or 2 person company, you don't need meeting rhythms.
Right.
Right. You don't need to worry about but you definitely need the corners.
Yes.
Right. So I understand my core purpose, which I just explained. My core values are very, very deeply ingrained inside my organization. My employees know my core values. I recruit based on my core values, deliver what we promise, be open and vulnerable, show respect for everybody, grow big, act small, have some effing fun. Those are my core values, right? Very deeply ingrained in the organization. And then my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal, which is the Jim Collins term.
Yep.
And most people screw this up. A BHAG is not a measurable goal. There's no number sign in there. There's no percentage sign in there. The examples of really great BHAGs are to crush Adidas, which was Nike's BHAG from 1972, to democratize air travel, which was Boeing's, BHAG, to democratize the world's information, that was Google's BHAG, to create insanely great products that challenge the status quo and change the human race, that's Apple's BHAG. My BHAG is for vivid visions to replace vision statements worldwide, right? And then, so those 3 corners are very deeply ingrained in my organization. And then the last is the 1-year plan. You don't need a 3-year plan because everything's changed by 6 or 9 months out.
Yes.
But you need to have some framework that allows you to say no to some things and yes to some things, and to budget for some things, right? It allows you to focus on the critical few things versus the important many. That's your fourth corner. That's where most entrepreneurial companies need to focus on. You don't need the sides of your puzzle yet.
Okay. No, that's super helpful. And if you've got your 4 corners, would you say, obviously you would say start with the vivid vision, so you at least know what do you really want, be able to give some life to that and some objectivity to that, and be able to operationalize that vision. And then you've got the 4 corners. And then it sounds like those 4 corners, especially the core purpose and core values, would be important to have in place, at least in a draft level, before you hire even the first executive assistant, because you want to find someone who's aligned with your values. I would think would be one of the primary metrics or filters for that hiring process of anyone that you consider a team member.